Good day. My name is Jimmy Dinsel Imikat. I will be the one to discuss about the Chapter 3 Form of Contracts. Article 1356. Contracts shall be obligatory in whatever form they may have been entered into, provided all the essential requisites for their validity are present. Yet, when the law stipulates that a contract must take a specific form in order to be valid or enforceable, or that it must be proven in a specific manner, such condition is unavoidable and essential. The parties' right described in the next item cannot be exercised in such circumstances. Meaning of form of contracts. The form of a contract refers to the manner in which a contract is executed or manifested. Form of contract means the document comprising Section 1, the contract signed by or on behalf of the parties confirming their willingness to enter into and be bound by the terms of the contract. Forms of contract. 1. The contract may be A. Parole or oral, B. Writing, C. Partly oral and partly in writing. If in writing, it may be in public or a private instrument. 2. A contract need not be contained in a single writing. It could be gathered from many documents that don't contradict one another and that, when linked together, reveal the parties, the subject matter, the terms, and the consideration, just like in contracts made through communication. 3. A contract may be encompassed in several instruments. Notwithstanding the fact that not all documents are signed by the parties, it suffices if they are mentioned, clearly identified, and constituted a part of the signed document or documents. 4. A written agreement. If there are 2 copies of the agreement and each party signs one, the agreement is enforceable against both parties to the same extent as if there were only 1 copy and both parties sign it.
Good.
When contract considered in written form, it is generally recognized that to be a written contract, all its terms must be in writing. So, a contract partly in writing and partly oral is, in legal effect, an oral contract. 1. In a case, only the price and the terms of payment were in writing, but the most important matter in the controversy, the alleged transfer of title, was never reduced to any written document. The court determined that the agreement should not be viewed as one written contract, but rather an oral one, a promise to sell rather than a sale, and that the absence of a formal deed of conveyance was a strong indication that the parties did not intend immediate transfer of title but only a transfer after full payment of the price. 2. In another case, the agreement of the parties was embodied in a 1-page handwritten document, without the usual terms and conditions of a formal deed of sale. Example: the document could not be used to determine the parties' names and addresses or the nature of the party. The purchaser's spouses A and B claimed that because the land was being sold in installments under the terms of the contract, they already considered themselves owners of the land after making partial payments of the purchase price in 1982, rather than taking ownership of it right away. The spouses C and D, the sellers, were found to have kept possession of the land since the parties did not intend for a transfer of ownership to occur until full payment of the purchase price, according to the decision. 2 aspects of contracts. There is no contract, says Article 1318, unless the requisites of consent, object, and cause concur. Yet, a contract will not be created if these factors coexist in the parties' minds without being expressed. Every legal act has 2 parts, and contracts are no different. 1. Intent or will. This is internal, and a contract has no legal impact as long as it just exists psychologically because the law cannot recognize its existence. 2. Expression of such intent or will. It is essential that the will be expressed in order for it to have legal effect. This is how the will is expressed or declared. On this foundation, formal and informal contracts are distinguished. Classification of contracts according to form. They are 1. Informal or common contract, which provided that all conditions necessary for its validity are met, may be entered into any form. Only consensual contracts, like the contract of sale, are covered by these. A non-binding agreement can be verbal or written. 2. Formal or solemn contract, which is required by law for its efficacy to be in a certain specified form. Rules regarding form of contracts. 1. General rule. Contracts are binding and therefore enforceable reciprocally by the contracting parties, whatever may be the form in which the contract has been entered into, provided all the three essential requisites, consent, object, and cause, for their validity and represent. The Civil Code's contractual structure will still adheres to the principle of the Spanish Civil Code of 1889 in the favoring parties' spirit and intent over formalities. Article 1315 and 1356 make this quite clear. The contract may eventually be reduced to writing if it is not done at the outset. It is not required that the subsequent contracts of a similar or related type should also be oral and follow the same method only because the parties' prior agreements were all oral. 2. Exceptions. The form, however, is required in the following cases. A. When the law requires that a contract be in some form to be valid. B. When the law requires that a contract be in some form to be enforceable or proved in a certain way. C. The law requires that a contract be in some form for the convenience of the parties or for the purpose of affecting third persons. It has been determined that a contract of agency to sell on a commission basis does not fall under any of the three categories mentioned above, making it legitimate and enforceable in any format. It is not necessary to provide any specific type of proof to establish an employer-employee connection. So, the lack of a copy of the employment contract does not in any way disprove its validity. A note or memorandum is not necessary for a contract of partition to be enforceable or valid under the law. Form for validity of contract. There are rare cases when the law requires that a contract be in a certain form for the validity of the contract, such as those mentioned below. 1. Donation of real property. It must be in a public instrument. 2. Donation of personal property, the value of which exceeds 5,000 pesos. The donation and acceptance must be in writing. 3. Sale of land through an agent. The authority of the agent must be in writing, otherwise the sale is void. 4. Contract of anticrisis. The amount of the principal and of the interest must be specified in writing. 5. Stipulation to pay interest. It must be in writing, otherwise no interest is due. 6. Contract of partnership. If immovables are contributed, it must be in a public instrument to which shall be attached a signed inventory of the immovable party contributed. 7. Transfer or sale of large cattle. It must be registered, so it must be in a public instrument, and a certificate to transfer is secured. 8. Negotiable instruments. This must be in writing.